Hi, my name is Allison, and I'm here today to talk to you about vaccines. Now, what is a vaccine? A vaccine is a type of medicine that helps our bodies fight germs. Unlike medicines that make us feel better when we have a cold or help us focus in class, vaccines actually train our immune system to fight germs on its own. Inside every single person, there's something called an immune system. And this immune system helps protect and defend our bodies against germs. Vaccines boost our immune system to make it much stronger so that when a germ comes, we're ready for it. Imagine you're on a soccer team and you want to make it all the way to the championship game. What would you do to make sure you were ready? You would practice, of course. You and your teammates would practice so that when the real game happened, you were ready. Vaccines do the same thing. They let our bodies practice and get strong. That way, when we encounter a real germ, we know exactly what to do. There are several types of vaccines to help our body get strong. One type is called an attenuated vaccine. These types are an alive germ that's very, very weak, which makes it easier for our body to fight. We've been using this type of vaccine since the 1800s. A scientist named Edward Jenner created one of these vaccines to help fight a disease called smallpox. And today, many children get this type of vaccine as a baby so that they're protected against chickenpox. These kinds of vaccines are very good at helping our bodies get strong, but they aren't perfect. Doctors need to keep these kinds of vaccines refrigerated, and there are some people who are very sensitive to germs that can't have this kind of vaccine. Another type is called an inactivated vaccine, and that means the germ is not alive at all. These are easier to transport and deliver because they don't need to be in a refrigerator. But they don't protect us for as long as the other kind of vaccine. We need more than one shot for this type of vaccine, and we call that a booster shot. Or we only get this kind when we need protection for a very specific amount of time. The annual flu shot is this kind of vaccine, which is one reason we need to get it every single year to stay protected. Another kind is the rabies vaccine, but we only need that if we're traveling to a specific place or encountered an animal that might have this disease. In the early 1900s, there was a disease called polio that was hurting a lot of people all over the world. It's very contagious and could cause you to become paralyzed. But scientists were able to create a vaccine that almost completely erased the disease. Now, it's regularly given to kids so that we don't have to worry about it coming back. And even if it does, we know exactly what to do to stop it. There are also vaccines that just use pieces of a germ called subunit vaccines. Although these vaccines contain tiny parts of a germ, they can be given to almost everyone, even people with health conditions or people who are very sensitive to germs. These kind also need booster shots to make sure we stay protected. The newest type of vaccine is called a messenger RNA vaccine, or mRNA. Scientists have been working on this type of vaccine for over 30 years, since the 1980s. But to understand how mRNA vaccines work, we need to understand a little bit about how DNA in our body works. Now, everybody has DNA inside the cells in their body, and the DNA has all the instructions for how to create new proteins that our body needs. You can think of it like a library full of recipes, but the recipes need to make it from the inside of the nucleus outside the cell to the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is like the kitchen where things are actually made. There's one problem though. DNA is too big to move from inside the cell to outside the cell. So what do? Our DNA creates something called messenger RNA, or mRNA. These are tiny, compact messages that can travel from inside to outside the cell. Think of it like instead of lugging the entire library, you can send just the one recipe page you need into the kitchen, into the cytoplasm to be made. Our bodies create these messengers all the time whenever we need to create something new, like a new toenail or some new hair or even some new blood cells. The mRNA vaccine works the exact same way, but instead of our DNA writing the recipe, a scientist can write a message that goes into the cytoplasm to make something new. The recipe the scientists write is for an itty-bitty piece of a germ. Do you remember those subunit vaccines I talked about, where we have a tiny part of a germ that our body can fight as practice? mRNA vaccines work the same way. Our body creates a tiny piece of a germ that we can fight as practice, and then we know exactly what to do when the stronger germ comes by. Even though there are lots of ways to create a vaccine, they all work in pretty much the same way. We let our immune system study and fight these weak versions of germs so that when the more powerful germ comes along, we're ready for it. It's like learning the secret identity of a supervillain. Once you know what they look like, you can be on the lookout no matter what costume they're wearing. Our immune system even creates something called memory cells that help remember what germs it has seen before. That's their whole job. You may have even heard of people who are protected from germs because they were sick before. That's because their body has these memory cells and it remembers what it's like to be sick and doesn't want to get sick again. These memory cells are effective and help sometimes, but they are not as strong as vaccines. I'm so glad you joined me to learn about different types of vaccines and how they help keep our bodies healthy. I hope you'll come back for part 2 when we'll answer the question, why do I need a vaccine?